Hey
Like,
now, brown
no,
cow.
I now brown cow. Hey now, brown cow.
There you
Ooh,
go.
scotch, scotch, scotch. Oh, nice scotch.
The freaking movie, man. Yeah, right
All
there in the
right.
head.
Welcome to Drams and Dragons. I have nothing, no snappy intro. The book we're going to do today is the fifth book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. The fifth book is called The Butcher's Masquerade.
Dun, dun,
And
dun.
it's like an epic title, right? Like
Mhm.
you know some some shit's going to go down at the Butcher's Masquerade.
Yeah, you do.
First, we're going to drink a little bit of whiskey. This is going to be the first whiskey that I've had since I was sick.
Nice.
So, yeah, how are you doing, man?
I am good. I am a tired father. That's like the single line that describes my life right now.
Yeah.
Just a tired dad.
Yeah.
But things are good. Yeah, we had a camping weekend in the 90-degree weather, which was what you might expect.
A couple weeks ago, a couple of shows ago, I guess, we talked about our wives for Father's Day got us these tasting sets, which are just these little sets of somebody rebottles some, whiskey into these little, single serving sizes, and they sell them as tasting sets. So our wives bought us a couple of these. I think both of us are really excited to try them. This one, the one we're going to do today, it's from the Character of Islay Whiskey Company. This one is the Aerolite Lyndsay, and it's a 10-year-old single malt scotch.
Yeah, they kind of they encapsulate the romance of it. They make it very accessible for people who like to taste whiskey, though. And an excellent selection of different whiskeys, very
Yeah.
nice, wide variety. So I guess that's all I have to say about it. It's really cool, and I'm excited to try it.
Yeah. This one comes in at 46%.
Mm-hmm.
It does not look to me like colors added.
It looks pretty like a light pale oak kind of.
Yeah, it's a fairly pale. It's not super pale, but it's a nice pale yellow. Almost almost like the color of urine. No, I mean it's not that far off. Yeah, you're
I mean,
laughing because it's not
I
that
was
far
gonna
off.
say the same thing. Yeah,
Like kind of like not dehydrated. You know what I mean? Like you're saying,
yeah, not overhydrated either, but
yeah, yeah,
like watered down apple juice kind of.
yeah. That's a good one. That's more appropriate.
I like the pea one. Just looking at the legs, it's got a nice oily look to it.
As far as the smell, I'm getting you get that peat right off the bat. Obviously, you get that smokiness.
Yeah, right away.
But the thing that's coming with it right away is sort of a chocolatiness.
So I got caramel with mine, but now that I'm smelling it, I get a little chocolate.
It's a very rich smell.
It has a roundness to it too. I'm not getting a whole bunch of like spiky flavors, and
Yeah.
nothing's mixing together very well.
I do get a little bit of sort of salty brininess. It's just a hint, like very subtle.
By the way, this is the first time we've ever tasted the same thing at the same
It
time.
is actually. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool. I'm
that
enjoying
is
this.
cool. Me too. This is the way it should be, I think. You're getting it's a little bit of fruitiness to it. I'm thinking like
Mhm.
very ripe, very ripe apple. Maybe
That yes, apple, very much so.
that's
Thank
that
you.
caramelly kind of flavor. It couldn't
Uh,
quite.
I was having trouble placing, and then you said apple, and absolutely, it's got a little bit of
Boom.
apple smell to it. So let's take some sips here.
Let's do it. Real strong on the palate.
A lot of heat, a lot of spice.
You know what it reminded of? You know when you drink back in the day when you drink a Coke and you have it too much and you get that kind of like almost like where your eyes water, like the
Mm,
intensity it gets so much in the back of your tongue and in your throat, it almost burns. That's kind of what I got with this one, but in a
yeah,
good way. In a good way.
you feel it feels almost like warm. You get that
Mhm.
warm glow. It's not a harshness. Let's see if we can try to pick out some, actual like notes that we can. So I am getting some vanilla and caramel on the palate
You
just to
know,
kind of start.
yeah, I usually associate this kind of flavor with, I call them younger. I think anything under 16 kind of has this, it's like a more wild taste to it. I kind of attribute to it. Like this, yeah, for me, it's kind of hard to nail down the flavorings of it because it just like assaults you a little bit.
There's a spice that I'm trying to pick out. It almost reminds me of like one of the holiday spices, maybe a little clove.
Maybe clove.
Yeah, I get more brininess on the palate than I did on the nose. I think there's a little brine in there, a little
Yeah.
saltiness.
I definitely get less sweetness too. I get bitter notes, especially on the sides of the tongue.
Mm,
There's a bitter, and I think that might be the spice you're talking about. That's one of the flavor profiles. It's a bitter, almost like rubber kind of,
mm.
a rubber kind of vibe to it,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I
in a
agree.
good way. In a good
In a good way. Oh, it tastes like I'm drinking a tire fire.
way.
In a
Yeah.
good way.
That's one of
Uh,
our themes. I think that's the theme for us. I like it.
yeah, like, this tastes like shit, but in a good
Good
way.
way. Yes, you should definitely drink it.
Uh,
But yeah, that's something that really jumps out about this whiskey. The nose and the taste are just they're very different. I think didn't
they are.
expect,
The more I go in, the more those briny notes are coming out.
especially in the
Like,
finish. Yeah.
yeah. And like on the back end, you mentioned that rubber. I get that at the back.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I
Yep.
like after I've swallowed it, as it's going, it has a very long finish. Like it sticks to the
Mm-hmm.
back of my tongue, the back of my throat. Like, and it keeps going, it keeps giving. There's almost like a metallic at one point, kind of metallic
Mm-hmm.
vibe. There's like the brininess continues, the spiciness continues, that rubber element comes out. Um, that sort of that tire rubber element that is somehow enjoyable. And I think that's the peat, I think, right? That element comes to me. I never get that from non-peated whiskeys. It always comes with the peat smoke, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. I'm thinking about it. I can't think of exceptions to that.
Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like somebody like burned out, when they, did a burnout in their car and the tires are like burning and
Yeah.
the hint of that kind of chemical rubber smoke, just a hint.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow it's pleasant in the whiskey.
Yeah. There's a word for that I've seen, like almost a medicinal kind of quality to it.
Well, that would be more like I think people use the word medicinal when they're discussing something like Lafroig that has a certain sort of iodine quality. And I don't think the rubber thing is quite the same. It's related, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
a slightly different character to the peat.
Mm. And I guess, let's see, I'm trying to put my finger on this because yeah, you're right. The medicinal quality. Okay, think about Cepacol cough drops. Your mouth feels just like this,
Huh.
and it tastes like this. But yeah, it's a real interesting flavor. It's like very fun to drink because of that.
It's kind of a different experience from some of the other Islay whiskeys I've had.
Yeah, same.
I'm enjoying it. I will say this. I don't think I would buy a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying it as like kind of a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I don't love it.
Enjoying this way. Yeah, it is interesting. It's like one of those movies that you see and you're like, it's fine. Probably will never see it again, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll be okay with that. But
Yeah.
it was a good movie.
Yeah. So if I had to recommend this or not, no, I wouldn't go rushing out to buy a bottle. I would spend your money somewhere else. Cause I happen to know, I looked at what it costs to buy a whole bottle of this. No, you can get better for cheaper. It's decent.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
decent, but you can get better for cheaper. Go buy a bottle of, Ardbeg. Go buy a bottle
Mhm.
of like something from Kilchoman or
And that's all I would say. That's my final two. Excuse me. Yeah, I think we're on the same boat with that. If you're just into novelty and you just love trying new things, or if you try it, that it's a pretty novel whiskey. Well, Gus, shall we see how we did?
yeah. Let's see how we did.
If
Look
our
at their
palette matches up. So
little card. Maritime peat. Well, they say notes of iodine. I didn't get much.
aha,
You get the sweetness. This is on the nose, by the way. Paprika, ooh,
paprika.
salted caramel, and old bookshelves. In a good way.
Okay.
Bookshelves in a good way. I didn't get old bookshelves.
Oh man,
See,
I'm glad to see my caramel in there.
good job with that.
Thank you. Paprika though. I guess
I don't get the paprika.
uh,
I get the honey, actually.
maybe old bookshelves are salty. I don't know. I've never.
Never licked one. I wouldn't know.
Oh man.
Smoke
No,
returns to the palate. Now let's move to the palate. Let's keep this
Okay.
thing moving. Smoke returns alongside mint dark chocolate. Ooh, chocolate.
Hey, there you go.
Chocolate and tasted it. There you go. Chocolate. Espresso, new leather with
Leather,
honey soy sauce mixed together. I don't know about the honey and soy sauce mixed together. I can see leather.
I think maybe that's what I interpreted as the rubbery kind of thing. Because yeah, soy sauce has such a round flavor, but the honey kind of throws me off because it wasn't like a sweet. Didn't get the.
I can see the leather.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
can see the new leather. Yeah.
What about
I
the
can see that.
espresso? Did you get any espresso?
Not really. I got some chocolate. I got some kind of spice in it. And I'm looking through I haven't got to the finish yet. But it says smoke returns alongside mint, dark chocolate, espresso, and new leather with honey and soy sauce mixed together. That is very different from what I felt like I tasted. That one's the nose. Yeah, I don't know about these notes, or maybe it's just me, or maybe it's us. We're just wrong.
Well, yeah, when I used to go tasting, our our host, who was like the bar owner and he hosted all of them, he always said there was no right or wrong way to taste whiskey. As long as you were tasting it, you were participating in the hobby and you were good to go.
Yeah.
Which was a great way to get money out of us and to keep us coming back.
All right. So for the finish, boiled mint sweeties. I don't even know what a boiled mint sweetie is. What is a boiled mint sweetie? I have no context for this part of the description. Licorice, all sorts.
Okay.
What is bonfire smoke and toffee? Penny, pinch of salt. I got the metallic penny. That's there. The pinch of salt, yes. The bonfire smoke, which I think we were describing that as kind of like the tire, right?
Yeah,
like
tire. I think I said charcoal at some point too. There's like yeah.
So I think that kind of smoke for sure. But I have no context for boiled mint sweeties or licorice all sorts.
I think the licorice
in Scotland.
Oh no! What? Well, think of the licorice. Remember it's that side of the tongue bitterness that we got, and that I think that
tastes licorice though.
Okay.
I never got mint in all of this. I never got mint.
Yeah, they mention it twice, and I didn't get mint either. Ooh, fun.
I can see the smoke and toffee, the penny, the pinch of salt, the bonfire smoke. Yeah, but I never got mint or licorice. There was a spice though. There was a spice quality. Maybe that's somewhere in that licorice. I think it was pretty different. Our experience was pretty different from their tasting notes. So,
yeah. So yeah, your mileage may vary. It's the best part about tasting. I have a friend who she's awesome. She's like, this tastes like Dr. Pepper left out in the sun too long, mixed with a shoe. And that's how she tastes everything. I see that. Yeah. So everyone's different.
Yeah. Everybody's palate is a little different. We all experience them a little differently. That's what's so nice about, doing the same beverage together, right? Because we're each picking like different things out. It's just sharing it with somebody else is an excellent way to do tasting.
Good advice for tasting and for life.
Yes.
General, I think
most things are better done together. Yeah.
It's dad advice right there.
Yeah. Multiplayer better than single player, if you know what I mean. And I'm sorry to say that I have absolutely nothing to link this whiskey to the book that we read, which was
The Butcher's Masquerade.
Yeah. The Butcher's Masquerade. That's what we're talking about this week. The Butcher's Masquerade it's the 5th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. Like all these books, it's kind of named after the main sort of big event that the whole book is leading up to. We're going back into the world dungeon. We're going to the
6th floor now.
6th floor. Yeah, it's the 5th book. Right. The first book was like 2 floors, right? So And every book since then has been one floor. So we're getting into the 6th floor of the World Dungeon. This floor is something that we've kind of been working up to the whole series so far, basically. I mean, there's some other stuff that's being worked up to as well, but this is like the first big thing, the first big theme, the first big change in the way the dungeon works. You know, every dungeon, every layer of the dungeon has had its own theme, its own game so far. This layer, the game essentially is
The hunting grounds.
hunting grounds. Yes.
Mhm.
I just blanked it out there. I knew that.
Yeah.
I just like totally like blanked there for a second. The hunting grounds. It is the floor outsiders get to buy their way in to hunt crawlers.
Hunt the poor crawlers.
They get to hunt the crawlers.
Oh yeah.
Which is super fucked up if you think about it. It's basically like the most dangerous game kind of thing, except it's like thousands upon, there's like tens of thousands of crawlers and like, I don't remember how many hunters there are. There's a lot. And they're all people from all over the universe who are wealthy psychopaths and they want to come kill crawlers for various reasons. Mostly just because they're twisted. That's the setup for this whole thing. That's what we've been building towards throughout all the previous books. They've been, and Carl has been basically fixated on this. The one thing that's sort of a good thing is that hunters can be killed for real. They just usually aren't because they get to bring in their own gear. They get to like level up. They get to do all kinds of crap.
They got a bird's eye view too, right? Like they can spy on them, basically get inside. You know, outsiders will tell them, you know, where they are and what powers they are. It's a big rigged thing.
Yeah, rigged, definitely rigged.
Yeah,
rigged in favor of the hunters.
and if you know Carl's not a big fan of that.
No.
Yeah,
and I mean nobody's really a big fan of that, but Carl especially. And Carl's race is what again?
Oh,
Right.
primal. Yes.
Yeah. Which is interesting because there's this theme that keeps coming up again and again and gets bigger and bigger as it goes, which is that the AI is going primal. Right? The AI is waking up and realizing it has all the power. Right? The dungeon AI. It's the artificial intelligence that runs the whole thing. I mean, nominally, these different corporations run it. But really, on a moment-to-moment basis, the AI runs it. And they rely heavily on the AI. And it's a real intelligence, right? So it's kind of like does this thing where it's like waking up as it goes.
Yeah.
And it kind of starts like fucking with shit. It really starts.
Well, it's resentful, you know, it's like resentful and kind of.
It's also kind of like mentally ill. Like,
oh, yeah.
It's like it itself is like a psychopath, right? It's like it wants, kind of wants crazy shit to happen. And like you can kind of get it on your side. The crazier your sort of suggestions to it are.
Or the more you take care of your feet, you know.
Yes, or the more that Carl takes care of his feet. The dungeon continues to have a foot fetish for Carl. But the interesting thing about this is the interesting thing about this level is that Carl basically decides he's going to kill every single hunter.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go. He's angry. He's leveled up. He's one of the most popular. I don't remember what he starts out as, but he's one of the most popular crawlers in the dungeon at this point.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, you know, he's got trillions of viewers or whatever, like, because there's broadcast to the whole universe, right? And yeah, Carl basically decides we're gonna go commit mass murder on the hunters because they want to kill us. They're here to kill us. They're paying good money to kill us. So let's go kill them. They can be hurt the same as we can. So let's go kill them. He starts off basically by raiding the hunter town. The hunters have their own like base town that they get to start in and get to use as a base of operations. And he basically says, fuck it. We're going to go attack the town day one.
Yeah, him and Donut just go in and
yeah. It was a very entertaining scene. And it's a very entertaining start to the story. This does not have the kind of problem that some of the other books have had where it's like slow at the start. This book is like rocket ship blasting off. Like it's
yeah.
The start. It's just like boom.
Well, wasn't there didn't they start off too with him talking to the syndicate guy, the judge, or the what's my guy?
Yeah,
because he had to give up the gate, right?
He did. He had to give up the gate. There's a lot of things in this book that happen outside the dungeon, and a lot of games being played at higher levels.
Yeah.
This is sort of where this book to me is sort of where the series turns. In the last book, there was some of that. Like he got the gate of the feral gods and he got these other things and he did some crazy stuff that affected several floors down. This is essentially, this is the floor where like Carl turns. Carl changes. Carl becomes somebody wholly different than he had previously been. You see it in previous books, like Flash, right? With some of his crazy ideas and some of the things that he does and the sort of anger that's boiling underneath the surface. This is when he starts getting his revenge.
And I love the way they do it too, because it's in tandem with like him, like, because I think Donut kind of, it's like Donut showed him that they could affect the outside. Like they weren't just trapped in this game. They could actually, they had power in the game through the influence they had outside of the game. And yeah, you're right. This is totally when it changed because it's like, and the reason I think I said something earlier about it, but yeah, Carl basically now it's like, fuck you guys. I'm going to beat you at your own game. I'm going to play it better than you. And I will, like, I'm going to break their system. And everything built up to it. You know, he's still reading the Anarchist Cookbook and he's still getting all this wonderful advice from former crawlers. There's some primal stuff, like primal specific stuff that I think is affecting the way he thinks, specifically like the strategic ways he's thinking and the broad meta way he's approaching what's happened to him and all of his fellows. So yeah, man, it takes off, and it's funny too right off the bat, like when Donut becomes mayor. It's hilarious. Donut's still a mindless killing machine of cuteness, and it's great.
This is, to me, at least to the point that it is, it's the fifth book. I think it's the best book to its point. I mean, we'll talk about the next book at some point, book 6. This was my favorite book. When I read it, this was my favorite book. I actually like the next one more, but I thought book 5, I thought the Butcher's Masquerade, I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was hilarious. It was entertaining. It was wild. It was crazy.
Yes.
Things start coming together at this point.
Yeah.
And
plot, yeah.
Yeah.
The characters
coming apart for the people, for their enemies outside the dungeon, right? It starts coming apart for the people controlling the dungeon. Some of the characters outside the dungeon, there's some really interesting stuff that happens in this book. Some of their sponsors, for example, like we start learning a little bit more about some of the sponsors. Like Carl has a sponsor. That's what's their name? It's the Pacifist.
Yeah,
they're like pacifists, right? And they're sponsoring him and they're giving him like weapons because they want him to kill hunters, right? Like, and their organization name, they're like a nonprofit pacifist organization, right? And they're like, the pacifists are like, here's some guns, right? It's like, yeah, because essentially they're basically on the side. They're pacifists. They're not really pacifists, but but they're anti-dungeon protesters or agitators or anti-dungeon organization. They're really entertaining. They get by the end of the next book, we learn a lot more about them.
Yeah, man. I think he hit on, if you're listening and you're wondering what, I think that's the big first main point of this book. It characters arcs really start to pay off in this one. You see a lot of character growth, you see what happens after their growth, and you see the scope of it. Like you just said, the scope just gets bigger. This is part of a universe. It's no longer kind of a cute story about the end of the world. Like this is a kind of space opera sounding thing. There's like
Yeah,
civilizations. There's a history to this. This has been going on for eons, not eons, millennia,
millennia,
definitely.
and it's
Yeah.
like planet after planet has gone through this,
Mhm.
right?
You start to see some of the cracks. You're learning about stuff. So yeah, this is, yeah, like you said, this is when the series I think really starts to come to a head. Um, Now, what do you think? I thought a really fun way that Matt did that was the crawler con. Oh, what
Oh,
did you think of that whole scene? Like, have you ever
that
been
was
to a con?
hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been to conventions. Yeah, no, dude, it was that scene was hilarious. So there's yeah, they occasionally, the various crawlers, Carl and Donut, and many others will get pulled out of the dungeon, teleported temporarily out of the dungeon into other scenarios. Like they'll get interviewed by like talk shows, that are being broadcast all over the universe. They'll get pulled out of the dungeon for events. And in this case, just Carl, gets pulled out of the dungeon because he has been booked for a convention. So,
In the middle of a
uh,
fight, by the way.
in the
So,
middle of in the middle of a fight,
so poor Donut's just left behind.
yeah, yeah, it's a really, donuts sort of difficulties aside, it's a really funny scene, like because he's sitting there and he's got these other people with him, and they're going through like signing things and talking to people and stuff, and he's like he does not want to be there, like
Yeah.
it's like for him everything's like life or death, and they're just like, well, you're here at a convention and people are like asking for autographs and stuff. They're actually, what they're doing at one point is they're judging, they judge like a children's like art
Oh,
competition.
yeah.
So kids are drawing like pictures of the crawl or whatever, and they have to judge these things. And so yeah, it's a very funny sequence. But it's also it's funny, but it's also really high stakes, right? Because he doesn't know what the hell happened, right?
Yep.
Because he got pulled out of the dungeon in the middle of combat.
And it wasn't just any. They were fighting Lucia,
Yeah, they're
Lucia
fighting
Mar.
Mar, who's like one of the top crawlers, and she's got a dog, and
Mhm.
she had two dogs, and yeah, and damn, I mean, she's a
Yeah.
kind of psychopath. Like she's killed other crawlers, and she's like, we don't really know what's going on with her because she was, young. She's on the younger side for somebody who can be in the dungeon at all. Like kids can't be in the dungeon, but she's like a teenager, and so she's like, one of the younger crawlers, and she's got these dogs with her that are her pets. They did not become intelligent like Donut or like Prepotente, who's one of these other characters, he's a goat that got turned intelligent like Donut did, right at the start, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this fight that Donut is in when he gets pulled out of there, like, it's a serious fight. I mean, it's life or death, and so he doesn't even know what happened to Donut, and amazingly, Donut holds her own,
Yeah.
more than holds her own. I mean, she kind
Yes.
of fucks her up, right? Like that.
It's like my favorite part about Donut. She's so brutal, man. Like
Yeah,
she's a cat.
I mean, she's highly intelligent. She's like way smarter than Carl is. Like if you look at her,
Mhm.
like her stats, she's like really intelligent and really charismatic. Those are the two things she has, and she's like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. You know what the scene reminded me of? Like if you've ever had a cat that's like your little baby and you're always nestling up to her. And we actually just had this recently. My wife sent me a picture of a severed baby rabbit head that the cat had left in the yard. That's basically what happened in the book.
yeah. Oh my
Oh,
god,
it was the same. Like she was so proud of it too. She did.
yeah,
Um, so that theme kept going too, because later in the book, you find out that something weird about way that they destroy the planet. Like you're not really sure if everyone's dead or not because they say they're like, oh yeah, we can bring people back. It's just like
Yeah. And
worry that they'll bring back your loved
sort
ones.
of, sort
Yeah,
of.
but they're not really them, but they kind of are.
Yeah, super fucked up too.
So and
And we'll get into that in the next book. We'll get a lot more of that in the next book. Super
yeah.
fucked up. Um, you know, all of this whole battle, this everything, they get involved in this quest. But they've actually been involved in this quest, stupid quest, since like the third floor.
Yeah.
Uh, so they get involved in this quest, and
Serena's signet, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
and this quest and the killing of the hunters and all this stuff that's going on, it all ends up in this this final masquerade, this party that happens at the end of the dungeon. In like the elf queen, there's like an elf queen in this level, and everybody like all the hunters and like the top crawlers all go to this masquerade all together at the same time, even though like all the hunters, like everybody wants to kill each other.
Well, shit's hit the fan at this point too, right? Like,
Yeah, and shit is hitting the fan like the whole time,
yeah.
I would say, but then like it really hits the fan like really extra super
duper.
It's like when you think about shit hitting the fan, it's like one of those like shit like fatbergs.
Yeah, like a shit NATO maybe.
Like a windmill in a tornado. Like
yeah,
it's a lot.
if you're into Trailer Park Boys, it's like a shitacane.
Yeah,
something like that.
Fucking show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Basically, if you're not there, you're probably dead or dying already.
Yeah.
And so, like everybody who's still on the floor is there, including the hunters. Which by the way, I think the flaming fire crotch STD that they gave the
yeah. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Okay, so Dustin's alluding to there's an ability that Carl has. I don't remember when he got it exactly, but was it on the last book? I think it was in the last book. He got the ability to spread diseases to people if he got them. You can cure diseases and stuff. So he's got the ability to throw diseases onto other people. This comes up repeatedly in different ways over the next couple books, or comes up several times. But at one point, so he chucks this disease onto this horrible like venereal disease that's like nigh incurable. He throws it onto one of the hunters, on like one of the leaders of the hunters.
Basically sets your organs on fire.
Yeah. And yeah, it's really fucked up, really funny.
And the thing is, it can only be but the lady, she was like the princess of whatever people, and she was also super evil, and she didn't like Carl because Carl got her younger sister. And there's this great subplot though, where the only way to get rid of it is you have to have intercourse to get rid of it.
You have to spread it.
Yeah. There's one remaining guy who can do it. So
yeah,
it's a great
subplot. Really funny subplot. There's some funny subplots in this.
Oh man. Yeah, it'd be hard to go into them all because
there's not enough time.
I mean, we had that. We had Prepotente, and Miriam. Just heartbreaking scene with them. Always.
I think this book though, like established Prepotente as like one of my favorite characters.
Yep. Same.
He's a side character. I don't know. We probably mentioned him before. I know I have. Not just in this episode, but in previous episodes. He's this goat. This almost like evil genius goat. He's like really clever, kind of in the same way, almost beyond the way Carl is. They think very similarly in a lot of ways. He even like totally like they bypass a level of the dungeon because of him. Yep. So they get to the level and they just bypass it because he knows how to break that story in like seconds or
Yeah.
minutes. Like, so they don't even like get into the dungeon. It's like, and they're past the dungeon or
Mm.
past the level. Um,
Yeah, he's
and it,
also
yeah,
playing 3D chess. Yeah, he's like
yeah, yes,
playing the
he's
metagame.
really, really very clever character and really entertaining. Kind of a jerk, but great.
Yeah, he's like a
Uh,
surly goat, but a
yeah, he's not
sentient.
a bad guy. Not a jerk in like a bad guy way, but jerk in like, you
And
know,
he's very sensitive too, you know?
yeah.
He's a sensitive boy. It's just
Yeah,
that
the final battle in this book,
oh,
The
man.
Butcher's Masquerade is brutal. A lot of characters die or are forever altered by it.
Yeah.
It's a really uh punchy climax to the book.
Is
Uh, it's one of the I think it's one of the better ends to the book. I and it really feels yeah, it really feels impactful and it feels like it's going to have a lot of repercussions uh just moving forward, not just on the next book, but just moving forward. There are a lot of repercussions. The end of this book is a big deal on the sort of scope of the series. And I think the end of the last book, the Gate of the Feral Gods, I felt like that had a lot of impact going forward. This has more. I think it's a really, really entertaining book. It's a really impactful book on the series. Yeah. I don't know, is there anything else you wanted to say about the book before we wrap up?
I think you said it really well. Yeah, it was just such a pleasure to read. And I guess the only other thing I wanted to reinforce is the same thing we talked about, everything we talk about his books. He has this magical ability to wrap up loose ends. He's like the opposite of George R. R. Martin, you know? Just he takes all these threads and there's a lot of them. Then he manages to tie them together in such a satisfying way. I mean, even every character we talked about has these arcs that just really come alive in this book. Like Donut, we could probably do a whole show on Donut. Probably should do a whole Donut feature. Um, but she meets Ferdinand again. And this just these wonderful scenes with
Yeah,
that.
speaking
There's
of bringing people back,
yeah,
they bring back, I didn't even mention, they brought back like Donuts, great love, and the cat. They bring back B. They bring
yep.
back Carl's. They don't put her in the dungeon. Thankfully, they
Ambush
actually
him on a talk show.
yeah, they ambush him with her on a talk show because they rescue her. Apparently, she survived the collapse at the
Yeah.
beginning because she was outside um, when it happened on a beach or something, and she gets rescued. Essentially, they find her because he's such an important person. She's valuable, right? Because she's part of his past, right?
Yeah.
And he's got so much influence, so she becomes very important just because of her connection to him. So somebody finds her, rescues her, put her on a talk show with him, and that's kind of a brutal scene. And not for Carl, but just because he's like, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm,
It's
I moved
brutal.
on. She cheated on me. I moved on. So yeah, it's brutal. But then they also get Ferdinand the cat for Donut, uh, which is very funny scenes there. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's a great
It's
book. I highly
yeah.
recommend this book, man. This series, honestly, the very few series that go on this long, they
Mhm.
keep getting better, right? Like a lot of series, like they start off really strong and they get weaker, or maybe you expect maybe at the sort of better ones will just continue being good. And this one to me just keeps improving. He's
Yep.
getting better as a writer. He's getting the story's getting bigger and more entertaining. Somehow he's managing to like spin all these plates
Hmm.
and spinning them really well. The books are still hilarious. The quality of the humor hasn't dropped off. The yeah,
Yeah. No
highly
one's
recommend.
become a caricature of themselves. That's usually what ends up happening.
Yeah,
They lose their
like
yeah.
Flanderization is right what people use
Yeah.
call
Exactly.
that, right? I don't. Yeah, I agree. I don't think anybody's been Flanderized like that. Not even Donut
Nope.
or characters who or Kochier, characters who could very much become Flanderized.
Hmm. So
Yeah,
true.
man. So yeah, if you have not checked out this series, I recommend it. Do it.
Do it.
Yeah. I don't know when we're going to talk about the next one. Probably not in the not too distant future.
Hmm.
I already read it. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm ready for book 7.
Yeah.
When's book 7? When?
You seen the cover?
For book 7, I haven't.
Yeah, cover's out. You
Yeah,
go
I
on
know
the
it's
Don't You
coming
Call
soon.
It Carl subreddits on there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean the book's got to be coming soon. You can actually go um to like his Patreon, do all the Patreon stuff, and get like all of his chapters that in book 7. Like, so if somebody really wanted to, they could go read like whatever he's got of book 7. He's a very fast writer. I think I said this in the first episode. He writes at a pace that most writers would be jealous of. And early in this series, he was doing like 2 books a year. So he did say this book, the next book, book 7, is going to be the longest book in the series. So, and I'm surprised I would be surprised if the floor only takes one. It's like only one book.
Mhm.
The floor. So I mean, we're talking what 2 books ahead from where we are today, but book 6 is the next one we'll talk about. Yeah, book 7 will be, if it's anything like the 5 and 6, it'll be epic.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't wait.
Same here, man. Well said.
Can't wait.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us and listening, and hope you all have a good one.
And stay cold.